Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. This is Essence of Life. Today, we're going to be talking about how we view the world. I'm Amanda Armagost.
I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
And I'm Carlos Taboo, and it's my first day here.
Today is Carlos's first day, so everyone welcome Carlos. He is our new clinical director.
Hello, Carlos.
We've been really excited for him to start. So we're going to start off. The way we always do. I'm going to ask a question, philosophical based, and then we'll each answer.
Okay.
So the topic that I want to talk about today is mind and body. My question is, what is the relationship between the mind and the body, and are they distinct entities or are they intertwined?
Well, I would say let's Carlos open the floor with this very, very deep question.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I would say I think they're very intertwined. One impacts the other. If you have bad mental health, you'll start to see the physical impacts of it. And also, if your body isn't working right, your mental health is probably going to start going down.
Very true. I agree with you. I'm pretty much on the same lines as you, but I'm a little bit more woo-woo, so I think that they're less
A little
intertwined.
what? I apologize. But say that again. A little more what?
Woo-woo.
Woo.
Like,
Say it again. Say it again. I think everybody knows that.
Everyone knows what woo-woo means, a little hippy dippy. I think that the mind and body are intertwined, but I think that maybe there's a third one that I would call spirit. It would be more intertwined with the mind than the body. I think exactly what Carlos said. If your mental health isn't doing well, your physical health won't be doing well, and vice versa. I'm going through a lot of abdominal issues, I guess you could say, stomach issues and intestinal. And it has not really impacted my mind the way I would have thought doing research on what I'm going through. But I think it's also because I do have a really good connection with my spirit, I would say.
I like that.
Thanks.
Wow, you guys are going so easy on such a deep question.
Yeah, we're giving you the floor to go hard on it.
Well, this is the old the philosophical question. If there is the essence of humanity beside what you see, beside the physical material molecule, atoms, and so on and so forth. And it is really hard to, even 2024, it's hard to answer that. Now, for a long time in the history of human being, most of the philosophers, they thought there is a soul to human. As a matter of fact, that was it. That what would differentiate human from animals. Humans have a soul. Animals, they don't have a soul. And that is what you could do. And it actually backfired in history. You could do to animal things that it wouldn't be accepted to do to human, because like owning an animal or slaughtering an animal, eating an animal, they don't have a soul. You can do whatever you want to do with them. Whereas human has a soul, the rights, the inherent rights, the natural law rights, the spiritual rights, the religious right that comes of being a human, because you have a soul, and that soul did not necessarily was confined to our material body. For many philosophers, that our physical body was a vessel, that soul, practically like a ship. It takes you from one shore to another, but then when you leave it, even though the ship can break down, can be destroyed, and so on and so forth, the soul, the passenger, actually moves on, and so on. For I'm a scientist. I do believe if there is the information flow that maybe some other people call soul or spirit. But I, as a scientist, as a neurosurgeon, I do believe that it's completely within our physical body. It's not separated. It is, and I don't see that the spirit or I don't see that separation between our physical body and spiritual self. I think they are very inherently, and this information flow. Now, the same way you can say like a computer is our body, but the program inside is us. But without computer, there would be no program. Even though we are not actually like, this is another the analogy that has been used in philosophy a lot for that is like, if you, God forbid, you have an accident, Carlos, and you lose your arm, are you still Carlos? Yes, you are. Legally, you are. If you lose, what about if you lose your both arm, both legs? What about if you put somebody else's heart in you, transplant? Are you still Carlos? Yes, you are. Okay. What makes you you is both as a person, as a legal entity, is the practically your personality, your thoughts, your legal relationship to your surrounding. That's what makes you you. And that is still there. If God forbid you have a bad accident and your face burns and all changes, you don't look the same. You're still the same person because the thoughts inside of your head, but it goes even further. What about if you have dementia and you lose most of your personality? Are you still Carlos? Well, that becomes Twilight Zone. Legally, you still are. Even though if you have to take many of your rights away and give it to somebody else, like a guardian and so on. Okay? But you still are Carlos. You still own the thing that you used to own. You still are responsible, not as responsible like if you do something bad, you're not as responsible. You see where we are going? This is a very deep question. And you guys went so fast over it that it is like, oh, wow, what's going on? This is like 3,000 years of philosophy you're talking about. Now, let's repeat the question and I give you a 2-sentence answer because I want, after knowing how difficult, how deep this matter is, I want to give you a 2-sentence answer.
Okay, I actually have a question. So, based on what you were saying, do you mean that without a body, or like without your body, you don't have any type of like spiritual existence?
I'm saying that the spiritual existence that you may have if your body is gone is nothing we can measure in any measurable way.
Okay. The question was, what is the relationship between the mind and the body? And are they distinct entities or intertwined?
I mean, I would literally do not call them intertwined. I would call them exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all three of us are pretty much I would say on similar pages with that. Although
Yeah.
I do believe in a spiritual body.
Without a spiritual self without the body. That's what you mean.
Like I do believe in a spiritual entity. I think that I've really been into near-death experiences lately. I've listened to a couple of podcasts with a scientist who specializes in near-death experiences. I think he's a psychiatrist or something. He's really into psychology and he interviews a lot of people after they've had a near-death experience and talks about how they kind of went through a whole different experience that is just unworldly. And then when they do come back to Earth, they have a hard time coping with the fact that they have to be here on Earth because what they were experiencing when they were passing was so pure and relaxing. So things like that, when I hear about things like that, it really makes me believe in a spiritual entity and makes me feel like maybe if your mind and your body are one thing, your spirit or your soul could be another thing. There's another book that I read, Touching Heaven. It's by a cardiologist. Have you read that book, Carlos? I know you haven't read that book, but I've told you you should read that book. A cardiologist, and he talks about a cardiologist surgeon. He talks about some experiences. One that really stuck out was he was doing surgery on this older man, and something happened to the electricity in the room, and the doctor had to climb. The man was passing. The doctor had to climb underneath the table to plug in something for his tools, his bed. I don't know what it was, but it made the guy stay alive. Later, like a week later, the man who almost passed away saw his doctor in the hallway and attacked him and said, "Why did you save my life?" And the man said that he was floating above his own body and he saw the doctor climb underneath the table. And the man explained, like, literally described everything. He said, I saw you climb under the table and plug that thing in. Why did you save my life? I was really ready to pass. And the doctor just was explaining his feelings, his conflicting feelings with that patient. So things like that make me feel like maybe we do have a soul. And I think you should read that book. Not because I want to change your mind, but I think you would like that book.
Now, I think we should do better than that. We should do a science of near-death experience. Put it on their schedule to talk about it in a separate podcast, because we don't have to invent that. This has been a subject not only in philosophy but in science and medicine for a long time. There is a good body of information that I think is beyond this podcast. So we should put it on the book, The Science of Near-Death Experience, and then talk about what's available to us of information, what is anecdotal, what is research, what the psychology says, what the neuroscience says, how the brain, like, lots of people say they see a light at the end of the tunnel. That's true, but we can talk about it. Why do they see that? And what our brain, how it works, how that can be explained by that. So I think that's a very interesting subject. We should talk about it in a separate podcast.
Yeah, we should. Do you know anyone who's had a near-death experience?
Do I personally know anybody who had a
Yeah.
near-death experience?
I think to talk about it, it would be more valuable if you have first or second-hand experience versus going off of what you've read, where you can have biases and so on.
Well, there's a difference between just reading, and as a physician, as a surgeon, as a neurosurgeon, there is a difference. This is the information I gather is not just reading a newspaper or a book and so on. It is about research.
Yeah, but do you know anybody?
Research. No, I don't know myself anybody who had near-death experience.
Okay, and then so my next question is, can art and creativity exist without an audience? I can start with that.
Please go. Please
Right.
go.
I think art and creativity do exist without an audience. I think that art is art still without an audience. The audience is just lucky enough to experience it. For instance, a mountain with the sea next to it. That's a painting. Everyone paints that painting. Everyone wants to draw that. It's recreated a million times, but it's not created by humans. It just exists. That is just art in itself. Or things like communication, like love. You're not doing that for an audience. You're doing it because it feels good for you or it feels good for someone else. And I think that that in itself is art. Or just like doing anything that you enjoy doing can be art, and you don't have to do it for someone else. I paint all the time, and I just paint over my paintings a million times.
But may I challenge you, Satan? You are your own audience?
Yeah, you can be your own audience, but for my first example, you don't need an audience. It's just existing.
Like what? Give me one.
The one I just said, the mountains with the ocean.
Mountain?
Mountains are art in themselves, or like landscape. Landscape is art in itself. You don't need an audience to have that exist. It's not existing for you. It's existing and you're enjoying it.
Yeah, well, they're existing for you to enjoy them.
No, they're not. They're existing because it's nature. And if no human ever goes to an island, does the island not exist?
For all practical purpose, yeah. Legally, the island doesn't exist.
So if you fly over an island, are you literally telling me that if you fly over an island that has no humans on it, it doesn't exist?
Well, if I'm flying over it, I'm seeing it.
But you're not seeing the beauty of it. You're seeing the land from 1,000 feet. You're not seeing it.
Then the island is not a work of art for me. It's a legal geographic entity for me.
Well, that's your answer to the question, and I have mine. This isn't about legality. This is about art.
Yeah. Our art is in the eyes of beholder. Have you heard that phrase? I'm sure everybody has heard that.
I can definitely agree.
Yeah. Who's the beholder?
Well, I guess it'd have to be
Person,
someone.
But it
person.
doesn't have to be a person.
Okay.
It's like if
So,
a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? It still makes a sound. You don't need to be there for it to make a sound.
okay, yeah, that is another analogy. So, Carlos, what do you think about
Well,
this?
I was just thinking, of art, creativity, some of that stuff can happen in your mind, and you don't really actually have to put it on paper or on canvas or anything like that. It could exist in your head. Sometimes, in the past, I was like a musician and I would think of lyrics or some chord progression, but it's in my head. I wouldn't put it onto paper or onto the instrument. So at that point, am I really an audience of something that is just creatively existing in my mind?
Yeah.
Really?
Why would we call something art like a beautiful mountain and the other thing like a rotting carcass disgusting? Why is one art and the other is disgusting?
Well, it's all about perspective. Not everyone thinks like I've recently seen one of the most disturbing images I've ever seen in my life, and someone found a way to turn that image into art. So
Mhm.
it's all about the perspective because art a lot of times has a message. Art doesn't need to be beautiful to be art. You can have very depressing things be art.
I
Art
want
is
to know what that is. Can you describe it?
you I don't know if I should.
Well, I mean, that's very intrigued, that. But I think you.
It was a photo of a child who was zip tied
Oh,
and yeah, and
yeah.
run over with a tank
Oh, yeah,
live.
yeah. Well, let's come back to our original question. Certainly, that's horrible thing that you just
But
described.
what I'm saying is that's one of the most disgusting, horrible things. But people can use that to make art out of it and make a movement or make a message. So then someone took that image and made it out of flowers, only flowers.
Mhm.
So now it's art.
Yeah. No, well, what I was referring to is that why the mountains are beautiful and a rotting carcass is disgusting is because we as human give them those values. For a hyena who is hungry, the rotting carcass is beautiful.
True.
True.
So, as long as you bring life into something, the life defines, and it can define for one thing, one way. One life can just say the rotting carcass is disgusting. The other life says rotting carcass is all I'm craving. And so, bringing that perspective in the game is actually what I think makes art or anything, as a matter of fact. That you remember you said if the branch breaks in the forest and nobody listened to it, did it still broke? No. Again, I think we here or don't have enough time to go to the depth of this, what this question is. There is a so-called Copenhagen interpretation in the quantum physics. Let me explain it to you. Everything is a wave, like an atom, an electron is a wave. But when we look at it, it becomes a real thing. A wave is not a real thing, but when we look at it, it becomes a real thing. And the Copenhagen interpretation, which is popularized by certain, especially like Bohr and so on, reports that everything in nature, everything in the physical existence is only exists when we look at it. Hence, Einstein says, I want to believe that moon is still there if I don't look at it. So this is a deep thing that again, you're throwing up a question just casually there that has so much deeper kind of meaning. If you can follow it so much deeper, so probably I do believe if a branch breaks in the forest and nobody listened to it, it's still broke and still the sound is still there.
Right.
But
Mhm.
because that sound impacted something else. But what I'm getting at is that there is a legitimacy to Copenhagen interpretation in the physics. And I'm not talking about philosophy. This is physics. This is what we can measure, literally with our instrument can measure. There is a legitimacy there that if it's not observed, you don't know if ever happened or not. Hence, it might or might not happen. It might or might not exist. And that's where the Schrodinger cats come from.
That's what I was thinking of.
Where what comes from?
Schrodinger's cat. If there's a cat in a box, you know if it's alive or dead. If it's in the box, you can't see it.
Okay.
So, and practically what it means is that it's something that we cannot wrap our head around it. The Schrodinger cat is a cat in a box with a vial of poison, and there is a quantum phenomenon that can turn the switch and literally make that poison release or not release. That quantum particle is practically it can be in both yes or no. It can be up or down, spin this way or that way. One way will release that. So practically, it says until you look into the box, that cat exists physically, both death and alive. And I'm not even go the further level, the Everett interpretation of that says every time something can happen, the universe, the whole existence splits to parallel universe. Now, there are lots of movies around that these days, but it says literally when you decide something, the whole universe split in two. In one universe, you decide it one way. In other universe, decide. This is not brain fart. I mean, our existence, like you are sitting there on a chair and you're not thinking to the center of Earth. Because these phenomena that we are talking about are real. Just because we cannot wrap our head around that, our mind is too shallow to understand that doesn't make a brain fart, what I just described to you. That the cat physically is alive or dead in the Copenhagen interpretation. Once you open up, then it's alive or dead. Or the Everett interpretation of multiple universes, that the cat, there's two universes. In one universe, cat is alive. In another universe, cat is dead. And once you open the door, you decide in what universe you want to continue moving and be. Okay, so and that is and when you continue that to the art and to everything else, it always requires an observer. The observer makes the actual impact, the perspective, the perspective, they need to be an observer. So who knows, maybe the whole universe was made for us to enjoy it.
Or what if the universe is the observer?
Well, I cannot answer to that. I cannot answer that.
Because we've already discussed in the past that the universe is alive, haven't we?
Well, in one of our podcasts, we discussed that there is a good statistical chance that the universe has an awareness. And alive, our understanding of life is so limited. For a long time, we didn't even know that there are certain kind of lives that it's so foreign to us on this planet. Like, there are some special bacteria, they don't live off photosynthesis, they don't live off sun. They live off the chemical that comes from volcano in the deep of the ocean. I'm talking about the extremophytes. So our understanding of life is so limited. We should be humble about what we call life and what we don't call life. So that goes that's the closest I can go to your woohoo, the hippie mentality, Amanda. That because you think everything has awareness and so on. That's at least what you told me once.
I do believe that.
Yeah, and that is the closest I can get to that. So for our current understanding, things are not alive, but what do we know? We should be more humble about those things.
Agreed. Okay, that actually brings me to my next question, which is a fast one. Please answer this question. It's like kind of a yes or no.
You're asking me
It doesn't have to be a yes or no, but it's my next question is for the next question. So this is just to bring us to the next question.
Okay.
Do you think that rituals are art, or do you think that a ritual can be described as art? And if you want me to go deeper into that, I can.
Yes,
Yes.
So you guys both agree rituals are art.
can be.
Rituals can be art, or
Yes.
can be identified or described as art.
Yes.
My question is, and I had to ask that first because I know that animals do this. Do you think that only humans can perceive art, or like, do you think that only humans? I don't know if that's really exactly what I'm trying to ask, but
That's exactly what you're trying to. That's a
Okay,
good question.
you know what I'm
Mm.
trying to ask. Do you kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
If you want me to start, I can. And I think that animals do have art. I think that, or non-humans, I think that everything experiences art, or everything perceives art. The reason I believe that so fully is because I know that animals have their own rituals, even like elephants bringing flowers to the graves of their dead family members, things like that. Or pigs do that too. So I believe that animals have art.
I definitely agree with that. And I just keep thinking about my dog, how, we interact with him as if he's human.
Yep.
We tell him, all right, it's time to go to bed, or, it's dinner time. And yes, he can understand the words, maybe words means actions to him. But, he has his own daily type of rituals. Like he knows his own schedule throughout the day and stuff. And when we watch TV, there are certain sceneries that pop up. When you have like a screensaver screen popped up, and he will just watch it. And you can tell his eyes get bigger and he's perceiving what's in front of him, and it's not just, oh, here's another TV screen. It's a look at this landscape, but he'll have similar reactions, but slightly different when we'll have a nature scene versus a flight over LA and stuff like that. So I can tell, there is something going on. He's perceiving something in a positive light.
Okay, I like that because I was thinking about my dog too when I was asking the question. And I was thinking, does she like when I take her on a walk some places versus other places? Because I know when we have our walk, she kind of prefers certain directions, but it's because she wants to walk past the park so she can smell the garbage and all the other things. So I was thinking, like, does Lily like art? Like, does Lily want me to put certain things in the house? I have been putting more blue in my house because I know dogs can see blue. So I'm trying to give her a more artistic environment. I'm happy that you agree with me. What do you think?
Well, as usual, I cannot just give a short, straight answer to anything.
This is the long one. You can do long on this.
So, I'm going to tell you a personal story. One of the things my father and I used to do together and bond together was watching nature documentaries. In Persian, they're called, translated, Raz Baqa, or Secret of Life. And that was one of his favorite things in the whole world to do. Watch the documentaries about life, about animals, about different animals. And he was obviously very excited about the lions and so on, but anything, he would just gobble it up, and I would see in his face how interested he was in the secret of life. The secret of life should not be a secret at all. It is available every time you walk out and you see a bird, you see your dog, you see your cat. It is life that's all around you. You eat life, you walk in the life, and once you start looking at life, animal, or human, and once you start looking there, you see everything that we are doing is not qualitative different than what animals do, it's quantitative different than what animals do. Like Let's start with something like that. We think we are smart, right? Well, we are smarter than animal, but animal have the same thing, but not to the extent, it's not a qualitative. Obviously, once something qualitative, quantitative is so much more, it appears to be qualitative different. Like we think we are so much smarter that we have language. Not true. Lots of the animal have language. They communicate with each other.
Even my chickens have language. I know for sure that they do because I hear them talking to each other and I can tell like they are communicating. They're saying certain things.
But it goes further. Like, we know now that before we started having voice language, we start having sign language, human.
Mhm.
And now once we discovered that that's the case, now when we go back and see the chimps and the orangutans and gorillas, they have sign language. Why don't they have regular language? Because they don't have the apparatus, they don't have epiglottis, and they cannot produce all the variation of the voices and sounds that human produce. So human started actually with the sign language, and then we had the better tool, our larynx developed, we can produce better, like we have operas for a reason, because our voices, we can variate it so much in so many different ways. Then we had a better tool than our voice. Now, when we lose our voice, we return back to our sign language, okay? But if you know that you understand that we came from the same path, now when we go back, all of a sudden it was all in front of us. We have been observing them for such a long time, but now we understand they do have language. Let's talk about another thing, ritual, death ritual. Once you observe that, even crows have death ritual. Even crows.
Yeah.
Now, you go and watch any of those Secret of Life or nature documentaries, you see the birds. They literally decorate their nest. As a matter of fact, for many birds, female birds, that's how they choose their mate. If you have a messy nest, if you don't have a beautiful nest, they're not going to mate with you.
Like a messy apartment.
Right.
Yeah. No, it gets even better. The penguins, for example, they're supposed to gather pebbles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It is completely ritualistic. That's what we consider. Maybe it had a reason at some point that maybe their feet weren't warm enough and they instead of ice, they had to have pebble and so on. But even human rituals, they had a reason. Eventually, sometimes that reason goes away and we still continue doing that. And again, all of that process, doing something for a reason and then doing it just because we have been doing it, it's a path that exists in the human, exists in the animal, and it's a quantitative, not qualitative path. Anything you do, including art, ritual, and anything that goes with that. Now, the beautiful part of it is that it does not take that long to create those rituals as people think. There's a good study, psychological study, and you can go and look it up, and it's amazing. So the premise of the ritual is there is three people who are trained, they're actors, and there's an interview. And these three people are writing something on a form for hiring and so on. And there is always a click in the room. Every time they hear a click, they stand up. They hear the click again, they sit down. And then the fourth person comes in. 9 out of 10 times, these are three actors. They always do that. Okay? But then the fourth person who comes in, at 9 out of 10 times, the fourth person is doing it as well. The fifth person is doing it. They don't understand why, but they just keep doing it. Now, then the examiners, the people who do the test, then one by one, they remove the original actors. Then there are only people who have no idea why they are doing it, but still, 98% of them, every time they hear a click, stand up. Every time they hear a click, they sit down. It is almost ridiculous just watching it. It's actually on YouTube. You should go and watch it. But for them, it's real. Okay, for them, and even though you remove the 3 individuals that were actors and initiated that, for a whole morning, these random people are in that room, conference room. Every time they hear a click, they stand up, and they're serious even about that. So it doesn't even take long to create those rituals. Our mind is made for it. But the question is now, why is our mind made to comply with rituals? What do you think?
Why is our mind made to comply with rituals?
Yeah.
Well, we want to fit in. We want to do things that other people are doing. And I think we want to do that maybe for a safety reason. We don't always understand why there's a ritual, but we want to do what other people are doing that are like us.
You nailed it. Safety.
Mm.
Because everything we do is made for us to survive. And sometimes what was dangerous first, it's removed. Like, there is no original reason for that. But our mind just says it's safer to do it that way because we have done it always that way. That you see as well the danger there, right?
Actually, yeah, it was making me think because it's Carlos's first day. It was making me like I had a little skit in my mind of someone being like, "Oh, this is how you do it," and it's your first day, so you're like, "Oh, why? Why do you always do it like that?" And they said, "That's just how we've always done it." It's kind of like you have this ritual, you don't know why you're doing it, but you're doing it and you're passing it to the next person. Where maybe Carlos can't feel comfortable to say, why are we doing it like that? Because he's told, this is how we've always done it.
Emperor have no clothes, right? Have you heard that the story? Emperor has no clothes.
I think I have, but tell it.
Yeah.
That's an old one.
Yeah, do you know?
The old one. You want to say it? Go. You know what it is?
I don't really remember. I remember it as like a kid. There was like a book about it, but
I remember that book too.
it's really vague, but it's there somewhere in my head.
Okay, so
yeah, tell us.
So there is this king that obviously nobody can say anything against him. He's the absolute ruler and so on. And the king obviously wanted new clothes for his coronation. And everybody comes in and bring the best clothes for the coronation and so on. And he doesn't like any of them. But then the tailor comes in and with his apprentice and so on, and they pretend to have a clothes, but the clothes is invisible. Okay, and only intelligent people don't see the clothes. Okay, or no, dumb people don't see the clothes. Something like that.
Only intelligent people can see them.
Yes, the dumb people don't see it. So obviously the king doesn't want to be dumb. Oh yeah, it's a fantastic clothes, and put it on, and the court and so on. Obviously, they're all intelligent. Yeah, so they all see the clothes, and then they are going through the street to the coronation, and everybody sees the clothes except a single child who says, "But the emperor, the king is naked." So you see, the peer pressure. This is the game theory of peer pressure, that we just do it because we have done it always this way. And I'm happy you and I have this conversation now, Carlos, because there is a reason big companies regularly bring people from outside in to revamp them, because we have done it always this way. Is the kiss of death to any organization eventually. Okay, that we have done it always this way is that the thing you usually in a company, in an enterprise, you say it a year, 6 months before you go bankrupt, because nature is changing, things are changing. If you don't question the premise of why are we still doing this, you're going to spend so much resources on ritual, like people standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down, just eating through their energy for no good reason, or many similar things that they may have had the legitimacy at a certain point, but if you don't reevaluate that, you are going to be behind the curve. For that reason, practical tip to you guys, every year or two, reevaluate your insurances, reevaluate your car insurance, your utilities, your internet, and so on. Otherwise, your neighbor might be paying half of what you are paying for something much better. And I can guarantee you, those insurances or utilities, they're not going to come and tell you, you have been with us for 8 years now, you're going to cut your the utility in half and give you 2 times more, the bandwidth and so on. They will not do that. So is it more practical than that always question the background? Now, internally, it's always hard. So it's your first day, Carlos. Question, revamp, and restructure, because that is how systems get better.
Definitely agree with that. And I think there's always a good and bad way to approach that. Someone coming in and saying, why, in a very accusatory type of manner, they're not going to get the right type of feedback and answers that they want versus, I'm coming in, Amanda, why do we do a podcast? I'm just curious, it's just approaching it with the right way that, will be received well.
Yeah, you don't want to offend someone's ritual, even if you don't really agree with it, or you can, because you're on the outside, you can see better ways of doing it. You don't want to offend them, but you can always improve for sure. Yeah,
so definitely. You come in with a curious mind just to understand and really understand what the why is, and that goes a long way.
Definitely.
So now you mentioned it. Why are we doing podcasts, Carlos?
Well, I guess that is my question for today. I mean, it's a great way to reach out, for people to, I guess, humanize the people who work for Inspired Spine and know that, it's not just a cog or a wheel, another health system. They're individuals with different opinions and they can, gravitate towards you.
That's very true. That is one of the reasons we do our podcast.
Main reason.
Well, I would say the main reason would be education.
Well, yes, I say that, there can be multiple main reasons.
Yeah.
Education is close to our heart, but as well, we want to show the audience that we are real people, and we just putting needle in people is not the only thing we do. There's a lot of background to us. But educational part, I think it's important to all of us, but especially to me, because I think not only it gives me personally joy, but as well, my best experience with my best patient were with the patient who educate themselves about their situation. They go and research about. It's 2024. I think it is time for everybody know about their life, about their health, about their biology, about what the options they have, and so on. And patients who know their situation best have been my best patient. So I just want to contribute in that direction.
Well said. So the question that I asked was, do animals perceive art? What's your final verdict on that?
It's a very sound yes, and we have scientific evidence that they have rituals. They do consider, that's another thing, the word art is just something we made up, right?
Yeah.
We dissect what that word means. That word, in my opinion, means a construct that we conceive as beautiful. We conceive as pleasant, as calming. Okay, so
or I think art doesn't always need to be calming, though. I think art can be even the opposite of calming. I think art can be very what's the word?
It could be provocative.
Yes, very provocative.
But whatever it is something that moves our mind.
Yeah, exactly. It puts our mind in a different space.
There is no doubt that animals have things that it moves their mind. And even if that mind thing is, oh, you have a nice nest, I'm going to mate with you and make babies. Or, some animals, they take things from the ground and put in their feather to make their feather bigger. This is no different than the human. They put eyelashes on, or they put some makeup on themselves and so on. So we didn't make it up. We did not make it up. It always have existed in animal kingdom. We just do it more better than anybody else. Like there is a joke about the Persian woman that they have the best noses ever, and then you have a kid with them, and the kid has a tomato or a potato instead of a nose, because none of those noses are real. They are work of art. All those noses are work of art of an artist plastic surgeon. So what I'm getting at is that that there's a practical reason for those things we are doing. We have a better mate, like the birds that don't have a nice nest. Male birds that don't have a nice, very decorative nest have less chance of propagating. And in human, we take it to a different level, but that different level is, again, it's quantitative, not qualitative. And it was a big deal, especially coming back to our first question. Animal, do they have souls or do they not have souls? If you take it the old traditional way, you say, no, they don't have a soul, they are property, we can do whatever we want to do with them. But if you take it as a, yes, they have intelligence, they have awareness, they have language, all of a sudden, this is not like a dichotomy, human versus animal. We become guardian of animal rather than just master and the torturer of animals. Okay, so this conversation can have practical impact on our lives.
Wonderful. Do you want to close out, or do you want one more question?
Well, I think we are getting close here. I think if you start another thing, I'm not sure if I can stop before 6 p.m.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching. This was Essence of Life. Today we talked about how we see the world. I'm Amanda Armagost.
I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
And I'm Carlos Taboo.
Thanks for watching. Have a good day, guys.